Hello,
Boa
Digital Universe.
noite, pessoal. Tudo bom? Sejam todos bem-vindos a mais uma sessão do FuturED. Hoje a gente tem um convidado muito especial. Ele foi coordenador de um grupo de pesquisa do Agents by Design, um chapter de Oakland. Foi quando a gente começou a trocar mensagens e se conheceu a respeito de um artigo que nós localizamos dele e nos interessou muito sobre o aprendizado baseado no fazer. Desde então a gente tem conversado, trocado ideias e hoje a gente tem o prazer de ter ele aqui conosco, Nico. Atualmente ele não está no Agents by Design porque ele está na Universidade de Nova York defendendo a sua pesquisa da pós-graduação, do pós-doutorado, mas hoje ele está aqui conosco para a gente trazer algumas reflexões sobre aprendizado centrado no fazer. A gente vai falar de thinking routines, a gente vai falar um pouco também de como usar o aprendizado baseado no fazer para o ensino de línguas, para o ensino online, como você pode traduzir essa metodologia, essa forma de pensar para ensinar diferente para os ambientes online. Nico, muito prazer ter você aqui conosco nesse programa que é uma parceria dos espaços americanos com a Embaixada Americana. Seja bem-vindo, amigo.
Welcome, Nico.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for welcoming me to this wonderful digital space. I am so excited to speak to everybody in this digital universe about maker-centered learning and language acquisition as well. Today we are going to get started with a do now activity. So we are going to be doing some origami today on this live session. And so your goal is to find the materials. You want to make 3 origami squares. And because we are all about sustainability these days, I want you to try to recycle and try to make them out of paper from pamphlets or old magazines that you have lying around the house. And so what I want you to do is just to look around and just find old pieces of paper. And you also want to make 1 origami square with paper that you can write on. So, you know, I am choosing some old pamphlets with beautiful pictures of maps on them, beautiful pictures of arts on them to make my square. But I'm also tearing a sheet of paper out of my notebook because I need to make an origami square that I can write on later. The ideal size for your origami paper is 15 centimeters by 15 centimeters or 6 inches by 6 inches in case you are listening to this from the United States. And if you do not have scissors, you could also tear the paper carefully. You know, I like to think of doing our digital making sessions with as little materials as possible. So what I do is I kind of just fold it many, many times, back and forth, so that it is nice and pliable for it to be torn into a square. And you know, if you don't have a ruler to measure the 15 inches by 15 inches, just wing it. And so usually that's about the length of your hand. You can also use your thumb to measure 6 inches. So go ahead and spend about 2 more minutes just to prepare your 3 sheets of origami paper, and I will check in with you again once you are done preparing your origami paper.
Lembrando, pessoal, se alguém quiser assistir a sessão do Nico, acompanhar a sessão do Nico com o áudio original em inglês, basta acessar o link para a sala do Zoom, se juntar aqui conosco na sala do Zoom, por esse link que está aí na descrição do vídeo no YouTube, da transmissão live no YouTube. No campo de descrição tem um link para você acessar a sala do Zoom e se juntar a nós aqui no backstage, tá? Aí você vai poder acompanhar a sessão do Nico com o som original em inglês. Quem preferir o português pode ficar com as nossas incríveis tradutoras aí, Natália e Verônica, no link de streaming do Zoom, tá? I already have my one piece of paper.
I think you need 3, Sora. You're gonna
I need
need
3?
Yeah.
Oh.
And remember, you need at least one piece of paper or origami paper that you can later write on, okay? Just a reminder.
All right.
Going to give you a 15-second warning. Make sure you finish making your paper in 15 seconds, and then we will continue.
All right. I don't have a scissor with me, and that is freaking me out.
Scissors, you don't have scissors?
Yes, because I'm looking for perfection, you know.
Oh yeah, but that was not our instructions. We are used to kind
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
It does not have to be absolutely perfect. I am actually tearing mine, so it shows
Yeah, me
the
too.
resilience that we have when we might not have access to all the materials that we need when we want to do making activities. And once again, this little webinar is to show you how you can make with the absolute minimum. And so now that we have made our 3 pieces of paper, I've got mine on the side, we are going to start on our first little part of today's webinar. So for today, we are going to start with a thinking routine from Project Zero's Art as Civic Commons project. And this thinking routine is called See, Think, Me, and We. So during this time, I am going to just ask you to watch me read a poem called Crane, while also folding a crane. And we will also have our translator translate it to Portuguese for us. And while you are watching this, after you watch this, I will be asking you 2 questions, which is, what did we see in this activity? What did we think about this activity? And you can populate your answers into the text box in your YouTube live stream. So let me go ahead and get started. So this is the poem Crane by David Yezi, and I'm folding a crane while I'm reading this. Paper creased is, with a touch, made less by half, reduced as much. Again by a second fold, so the wish to press our designs can diminish what we hold. But by your hands' careful work, I understand how this unleaving makes of what's before something finer and finally more. I'm going to give some time for the translator to read this poem aloud in Portuguese and let me know when she is finished.
Well, she was perfect. She talked over you and it rhymed. It was really amazing.
Okay.
So you can continue, Nico.
All right, so I am actually, I expected for me to have a little bit more time to finish folding, folding this creation. Actually,
it's okay. We can keep. We haven't finished our 3 origami sheets, so maybe.
No worries. Actually, can the translator just this time around? Can you just read the poem slowly once again, just to like let the audience hear the poem once again?
In English or in Portuguese?
In Portuguese.
All right, Natalia, take it away. All right, Nico, she's finished.
Thank you very much, Raj. So I would like to ask the audience to answer these two questions. What did we see in this activity? And I am still in the midst of finishing my crane, but I will be finished very soon. And what did we think about this activity? Go ahead and populate the chat box with your answers, and Daniela will be picking up on what you are saying in the chat box. Daniela, can you please share with us a few things about what our audience said that they saw in this activity?
We have a little delay on the comments.
Or can you share at least what you see in this activity?
Yeah. Vitor Cerati on the Zoom here, he taught us, I see an activity involving motion, origami, and a poem. And I think there's some sort of motion in the poem showcasing each folding movement.
I love it. That's beautiful.
I love it too.
On YouTube, we have Yasmin Gonçalves saying that she sees transformation.
I assume she means the transformation of the paper, and I just want to share this really like magical last part of the origami folding where it still looks like paper, but here suddenly we have one side of the paper become one wing, the other side of the paper become another wing, and these two little points, suddenly we can choose which part can become the tail and which part can become the head. So I'm going to choose this little part to become, if you can see it, become the head. If you want it to become the head, you kind of bend it down a little bit, and suddenly the crane has a little face, and we pull out the other part of this paper, and suddenly we've got the tail. So we've got this beautiful transformation of paper into a crane.
We have wonderful comments, Nico. Malu is saying that what got her, right? Was the transformation of the paper, right, itself, and language, right? Flavia is talking about symbols and origami, a live construction from Janaína. Evania is telling you that she sees a link between your hands and your heart.
Oh, that's beautiful too. Love it.
I love those beautiful audience answers. Go ahead and keep them coming, but I am going to go on to the next question, which is a question for reflection. So what did this activity mean to me? Now, I asked the audience not to do this activity with me because I just wanted them to just sort of observe what I was doing, to closely look at what I was doing. And when I think about this activity and what this activity means to me, I think about how it is magical that whenever we fold paper, you know, it transforms in ways that if we look closely, we can find more information and learn more information. So paper crease is with a touch made less by half. You know, there's this sort of idea that with the power of our hands, we can actually reshape things to make something whole, to make it half. So there's a little math lesson there. And then as we continue to fold, we have a wish in our brain that we can press our designs. We can push our own power to make something look smaller, perhaps what we hold in our hands, but with our careful work, we can actually create out of something that seems so empty and so simple into something much more complex and beautiful. So that is what this activity means to me. I want to go on to the last question. How do we co-construct meaning when we make together? I want to talk about this question as a living question for our learning community, especially in our learning community of maker-centered learning. A lot of the time we think about maker-centered learning as making robots, but we also can think about how we can use simple materials such as paper, make them together, and co-create meaning as a community. And so I want to use this time to ask Rodrigo to read a passage about the symbol of the crane and how making the crane together can become this powerful community meaning-making experience.
Good night, Nico. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. So let me read about the crane or tsuru in Japan. In Japan, the crane or tsuru is a national treasure. It is the symbol of longevity and good luck because it was thought to have a lifespan of 1,000 years. Tsuru are also monogamous, therefore used for wedding decor. An example of this is seen on formal wedding kimonos and the uchikake, a decorative kimono that goes over the actual kimono, where beautiful images of tsuru are often embroidered. Another example of the crane used in Japanese culture is the 1,000 origami cranes called Zenba-zuru. As the story goes, during World War II, Sadako Sasaki, a young victim of the atomic bomb in Hiroshima, was diagnosed with leukemia from exposure to radiation. There are many versions of her story. One says she decided to fold 1,000 paper cranes as a symbol of peace and hope, but was only able to fold 644 before she died of her injuries. Another says her friend folded the cranes for her in hopes of her recovery. Regardless of who folded the cranes, today people of Japanese ancestry, as well as many others, carry on the tradition of folding 1,000 cranes in hopes of health, happiness, and peace. There is a memorial statue of Sadako at the Hiroshima Peace Memorial Park, with her holding a single crane.
Thank you so much, Rodrigo, for that beautiful reading of that passage.
Thank you.
I want for us as a community of learning to look at this picture and think about this question one more time after reading this passage, which is, what do we co-create? How do we co-create meaning when we make together? So think about the context of this lesson, about how we were able to co-create meaning. And if we are to make these cranes together, what does that mean? We'll wait for you to populate your answers in the YouTube chat box. But for now, I would like for our webinar team to sort of look at this picture and see what you have when it comes to what thoughts you have about what you see in this picture. Would anybody like to share?
Well, I see a girl holding a crane, which is a statue, but also thousands and thousands of paper cranes folded to make the image more powerful, I think.
Who do you think made those cranes, Rodrigo?
I think visitors and people that were sympathetic about her story.
I love it because sometimes when we think about folding 1,000 cranes by ourselves, it might be sort of this very difficult thing to do. It'll just take forever, right? And so visitors coming together to put together their power and energy to sort of add to the symbol of peace. Daniela, were there any comments from the audience about what they have?
Yes, Victor here with us is saying that for him, this activity is all about art. There's beauty in each movement, each line being formed is carefully thought and measured. The poem goes likewise. He's talking about the first activity as well. Malu is saying that we are constantly re-signifying us as life happens. em cada um de nós tem o sentimento sobre o que está fazendo. Fazemos juntos, podemos pluralizar e conectar esses sentimentos. Eu acho que eu misturei inglês com português aí, né, gente?
Yes, you did, teacher.
I think que deu um bug aqui na cabeça.
Yes, you went totally bilingual here.
I understood
No,
some of
Malu,
those.
Malu is like, she's with us in the Maker team, so we know her well. She's a wonderful girl, and she's saying that with everything that is happening, you know, and we have different feelings and emotions, and things are changing so fast that we are constantly reimagining ourselves and repurposing everything, right? And by making together, we can put these feelings together, connect our feelings, and yeah, that's what she says. Beautiful.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I am very inspired by what Manu has just said. And you know, we are at a very difficult time in our for all of our educators. You know, right now we have a crisis. That's not the atomic bomb, but we have this pandemic that is happening that forces us to deal with this crisis. And we're just sort of like, oh my gosh, how do I teach when I do not have that much experience with online teaching? Especially with the educators who are super interested in maker-centered learning, who are using all these wonderful tools to make learning more engaging in their classrooms. And so the question that I want to transition to is, what tools can we bring into our online learning spaces? Daniela, can you tell me what you see on the tools poster on the right here?
I see many things, Nico, but you're asking me what I see that I can use now, right? During my remote teaching time?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I would love to say that everything, but unfortunately, being a teacher right now is about the screen, right? Cell phone, the screen, I can, you know, that's, yeah, and a pencil. That is, the image is quite small for me. I think it's a pencil or a pen, please correct me. And I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. And of course, right, what's right in the middle, so beautifully laid out, our brains and hearts and hands as tool. This is beautiful poster, Nico, really beautiful.
Thank you. I want to give credit to Brooke Toksowski, who is an artist, but also my former boss, the executive director of agency by Design Oakland. She was the one who designed this beautiful poster for our makerspace, but she also made 300 copies to distribute to different Oakland teachers all around our city so that they can also post this beautiful poster in their makerspaces. But suddenly all of these teachers are working online. And so I love what Danielle said, which was, yes, like one thing that all of us bring to online learning is our bodies, our brain, our heart, our hands, which we can see on the poster, but also what we don't see that we are actually using to look at the poster are our eyes, the visual language that we are reading using the tool of our eyes. What Daniela also said, you know, like we are bringing screens into the mix. Like the screen is actually a tool. It could be our phones, it could be our computer. What Daniela also said, the pencil, pen, and the marker are also these rudimentary tools that our students should have. So these are kind of like the basic tools that if we want to have an equity-minded sort of online learning experience that uses making, we have to sort of think about these as creative constraints when we are trying to design our making activities through the online space. Before I go on, I want to quickly introduce myself and also the topic of this webinar. My name is Nico Chen, and I am currently a PhD student in teaching and learning at NYU Steinhardt. My focus is on how language can be intentionally incorporated in all subject areas, and how language can be not only distilled in its textual form, but also in its gestural form and also its visual form. And so currently, right now, I'm working on a research project with my advisor on how making and language are can be integrated in these STEM subjects. Now, today's webinar will be on, about the question, how do we redesign our learning communities when adapting to distance learning? This is a very important question, and in order to continue on with this, I want to add a few more tools into our slide, which is these three things: textual language, visual language, and gestural language. These are words, images, and actions. So as a researcher, I study discourse. I study about how we come together and interact using these three different tools of discourse. We communicate through not only our words and what we say, but also what we see and also what we do. And so when we are thinking about the tools that we can bring into our online learning spaces, I want to add these tools because they are often invisible to the naked eye, even though they are crucial things that we need to integrate into our maker-centered learning space. So during this time of remote learning, we have this design challenge. You know, we have all these students, and you know, on this poster we have a ruler, we have like this beautiful little light bulb, we have screws, we have hammers, we have screwdrivers, but not all of our students who are not in our school at our makerspace have access to these tools. So suddenly we need to have to look at this constraint of tools. And so the question is, how do we bring maker-centered learning into the digital space using only these following tools? And that is going to be our design challenge. And the reason why I talk about the design challenge is because there is something that Professor Joshua Eiler from the University of Mississippi talks about, which is resilient pedagogy. I'm going to say that one more time, resilient pedagogy. What Joshua Eiler says is, resilient pedagogy is a course design strategy that helps make your classes, assignments, and assessments as resistant to disruption as possible. The way to think about this is, regardless of which modality you're teaching in, online, in person, or blended, you're designing one time, okay? One time and one time only. And so, you know, during this time of this pandemic, you know, we're not sure when we're going to actually go back into our classrooms. We're not sure when the next pandemic will be happening so that we suddenly have to be in online learning again. Today, we're going to be talking about this, this small toolbox. So the left picture, you see the poster of all the different tools we have in our in-person making space. But to start to limit ourselves to the smaller toolbox on the right, when we are creating these making activities so that they can work for both the online space or the in-person space. And so that is what Joshua Eiler calls resilient pedagogy. If you have any questions about this, you can go ahead and populate that into the text box as well. I will be able to answer the question a little bit later, but I'm going to go on to another slide, but we're going to be talking about perhaps the most important tool of all. We're going to be talking about the tool of the brain. The brain is obviously something that we use to think with. And I want our colleague Sora to please read this passage from The Power of Thinking Routines. Sora, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Okay, I was unmuting, sorry. I'm going to read it. In Culturally Responsive Teaching and the Brain, writer, educator, and literacy advocate Zareta Raymond writes, building a culture of care that helps dependent learners move towards independence requires what I call a learning partnership. Practicing these thinking routines with our learning community, anchored within and across content areas, empowers both teacher and student. Enter a learning partnership. Oh, I love these words. To think deeply from a variety of perspectives, develop their curiosities, empathy, and understanding of not only systems, but also the different layers within that as well. Think of it as an equation. Raymond writes, rapport plus alliance equals cognitive insight. By using these thinking routines routinely, educators support learners in a culture of thinking, establishing a rapport and an alliance in their learning partnerships that lead to cognitive insights. From the Power of Thinking Routines, Gaba and Chen, 2018.
Thank you very much for reading that, Soraya. That was a beautiful performance. So once again, these are
thank you.
so once again, these are tools that we can use. That's kind of an extension of our brain. We are using these thinking routines to produce the language, produce the discussion, to produce the different perspectives within this discussion, to break down the systems, to understand how to remake the system. That is a tool that we really should be bringing into all of our classrooms. And this is part and parcel of the maker-centered learning ideologies. And so this is a practice that I like to do, which is I like to look at the topic that I am teaching very, very closely through the thinking routine parts, purposes, and complexities, in order to really understand the topic that we are talking about and how to design resilient pedagogy for our students based on our topic. These thinking routines will help us get to these insights that allow us to create powerful making activities and powerful learning opportunities. So I'm going to be working with Soraya and also Daniela to sort of look closely at the topic of poetry. And let's start with Daniela, actually. Daniela, let's take a look at this activity one more time. And let's talk about what are its parts. What are these parts of this activity?
Okay, let me see. Nico, I see a title. Mm-hmm. The name of the author. I see some stanzas, 4 stanzas, some words and rhymes. Should I go on?
That's wonderful. Thank you, Soraya. Soraya, I also want to open this up to our audience. Audience, if you can share other parts that you see in this activity, please share. But Soraya, can you also add any parts that you also see?
I also see a photo of the origami folding, and I think that's it. I add the photo to Dani's description.
So I also want to focus on the words itself. And so for me, another part of this is obviously design. You know, whenever we are starting something on paper, whether we are writing an essay, we have the design of the essay in our mind. Or if we are about to make a crane, we have the design of the crane in our mind, right? So we also might want to think about how these words might not only be words, but also images in our brain. So when we think about the crane, what is the symbol of the crane? What is the purpose of that symbol of that crane, right? Is there anything else that the audience has shared with us through the Google chats, or sorry, the YouTube chat?
Not yet, Nico. Maybe people need some more time. There is always a small delay. Okay, we got a couple now. Rodrigo is saying that the rhymes are different. Mm-hmm. Ariana is saying that she sees 4 stanzas. Oh my gosh, like verses and 4 stanzas. 4 verses and 4 stanzas. I don't know if I'm translating right. 4 versos, 4 versos e 4 estrofes. So, and Rodrigo is saying that the sentences, they end in the mid of the verses. I don't know, it's if I'm translating this right. Sorry.
No, so
Yeah.
the sentence continues into the next stanza. The sentence is not complete at the end of each stanza.
I see. I see. I see.
Elena here at the chat is saying that she sees a lot of verbs.
I love it. Go ahead.
Malu says that she sees a universe of words and a universe of meaning.
Meaning. Yeah, very good word.
I love it because that also transitions us to the next part, which is like, what is the purpose of these words? You know, like the person who said that there's a universe not only of words, but also a universe of meaning. Sometimes one word can actually have multiple meanings. Let's just focus on the word paper as a symbol and the possible many different meaning that paper can have. So what is the purpose of just that one word, paper? Let's have the audience go ahead and populate their ideas into the chat box.
Yes.
What is the purpose of that word paper?
The purpose of the word paper.
Any ideas from the group or from our YouTube chat?
Not to your last question, but there is one comment here in Zoom, and the guest says that he sees that it's not symmetric. However, everything matches and it is visually complementary, text and picture.
Beautiful, thank you.
That answers, yeah. Right, and now we have some questions about the meaning of the word paper coming up, right? Okay. Monique is saying that she thought of imaginação and transformation. And Rodrigo is saying that it means something clean, where we can create everything.
Yeah, so the paper is almost a symbol of our imagination that, you know, on this blank slate, we can create almost anything based on any possibility based on our imagination.
All right, yeah. Beautiful. Malu is saying the paper is where meaning happens.
I love it.
Yeah, it's material to be transformed, right? Yasmin is saying that it's a possibility for creation and the power of transformation.
Vito Cerati says here at the comments, paper is used as a matter of the origami, which undergoes a transformation to assume a new form and meaning. And the guest says paper equals made for transmitting ideas and make them stay somewhere.
I guess this guest is Felipe. He's saying that his name is not showing, but he's Felipe.
Okay.
I think it's...
Hi, Felipe.
Hi, Felipe. I think I know who you are, so welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here from Mexico. Fellow, yeah, right. So.
Hi, Felipe.
Hello, Felipe. It's great to have your beautiful answer. That's beautifully put. I'm going to go on to the last question. What are its complexities? Now, you know, there is a person who made a comment from before who said, you know, it's a little bit strange that, you know, these sentences don't end at the end of the stanza. So why why use the complexity of the stanzas to sort of give yourself that one stanza and continue the sentence in the next stanza? What's the complexity in that? What's the meaning behind that complexity? So I'm going to give you just maybe 30 seconds to think about that question and then input your answers.
We have some beautiful replies here, Nico.
Go ahead.
Wonderful comments.
Yeah, it's Elena is saying it's like folding the origami. Each fold is part of the next.
Oh, this is beautiful, Miss Nena. At the end, there is one final opening movement that connects to all.
Vito is saying that the sentences are broken to mimic a pacing of the folding paper. Each new fold is a stop in the breath. And then Nena is getting compliments because the comment was so awesome. I hope
Oh, because she's a origami geek, so she's a origami lover, so she understands the philosophy behind the art. So this is a new layer over this reflection, on this reflection.
Yeah, I love all the comments. Almost every line is like a fold, so it almost has that beautiful rhythm and pattern of the actual fold. So when you are reading the poem, it has that sort of cadence of folding. I want to just talk about the stanzas again, like whenever we are folding something, there's, for me, there's this fold and then this fold, and I complete the first few steps. But do I see anything yet? The paper is still kind of incomplete. So even though we are folding things as we go along, what we want to realize does not actually happen until our designs are complete, right? And so sometimes the sentences, they stop abruptly because what we are trying to do is unfinished until our design is actually finally fulfilled at the very end, which is something finer and finally more. And so it's this sort of transformation of the paper into the crane. And I just think that it's so magical that this poem never talks about the bird. It never talks about the actual crane. It only is the title. But as you are reading, you can almost feel that the paper is being creased, being folded, and as it goes on, the form starts to finally come together at the very end. Let's go on to the next parts. So I want to just talk about these two other thinking routines and why these are important when we are designing for our learning communities. Now, the parts people interactions, it's to identify a system and ask what are the parts of the system, who are the people connected to the system, how do the people in the system interact with each other and with the parts of the system, how does a change in one element of the system affect the various parts and people connected to the system. So this part's going to be a little lecture because I'm going to be talking through it based on the context of my learning community. We've already talked about the system of poetry, but the system of my school is actually, I worked at a school in Oakland called Oakland International High School. We are a school for newcomer students, so all of our students immigrated to the United States within the last 2 years, and they come from 33 countries. They speak 14 different languages. And so these people that come to our school are people who do not have the franca lingua of the United States, which is English. And so obviously people are interacting with the idea of learning poetry through many different home languages while trying to learn English as a second language or a third language or even a fifth language. And so obviously this is a very complex system where I have to teach poetry in. And so when I choose poetry and I think about the system, I think, you know, not only in what ways can it be made more effective, we usually think about effectiveness as something for a text, right? But rather, I think about this last question: in what ways could it be made to be more beautiful? And so this is the thinking routine, imagine if. Not only more beautiful, but for me, beauty is when students are able to learn something, but have it be meaningful for themselves. And so for me, beautiful for this learning community is how, in what ways can we make learning whatever topic we are learning more meaningful and also more speaks to the students' assets. So a lot of their assets is obviously all of their home languages that they are bringing into this beautiful international space. So I want to show you and guide you through an activity that I do with my students. And so for this activity, I want us to take 3 minutes to do the following. The first thing that I want you to do is to take these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 English words, and I want you to translate it into your home language. It could be Brazilian for some of us. It could be Portuguese for some of us. It can be Spanish for some of us as well. After we, and you can also use a screen, so you can use the tool Google Translate to help you translate these 6 words. After you translate these 6 words, what I want you to do is to create 2 sentences and share that within our text box in YouTube. So the 2 sentences should use the words see and think. So I see, I think, and try to describe the photo the best that you can using these 2 sentences. So I'll give you guys 3 minutes to do the translation of the words and also to construct your 2 sentences. And this is a challenge in English, in English, okay? So do your best.
Nico, does our sentences need to use all the words or some of them?
Your sentences should integrate as many words as you would like to. So create the best sentences that you can, and you can use any words that you want to. But these 6 words are there to help support you and guide you if you want to write your sentences in English.
Thank you.
That's a 30-second warning. 30-second warning. Make sure to put your sentences into the YouTube chat box. All right. Let's see what we have shared through our audience participation. Daniela, can you find a few sentences to share with our digital universe?
Yeah. We have some in English and we have some in Portuguese. So, Larissa is saying that eu vejo barco no fluxo das ondas, so she sees a boat going with the flow of the waves. Sora wrote here very long comment. I'm going to read in Portuguese. And I'm going to try my best, or she will. It says that she sees a boy using a pencil as a roar to row. And he's also writing words on the waves, following the flow of his mind and of the ocean. Rodrigo sees that he sees a boy rowing in a sea of words. And then he noticed that the oar is actually a pencil. Dani Galvão, he said that he sees a roar that forms and navigates in a sea of words.
Evania says, I see a boat being rowed by the waves of words.
Poetry here.
Yeah.
Poetry here. Oh, Dani hadn't finished, right? Because what he sees, the notion of words in a whole world of poetry. Everybody's getting creative. It's funny, right? The more we write, the better and deeper
it gets.
Yeah, interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah. We have more, Nico. We have more comments. Should I keep reading?
No, that's beautiful. I think that we can go on to the next part because we are running short on time. I do want to go to the next part, but thank you so much, Daniela, for that beautiful reading from our audience. So obviously, when it comes to language, right, if we see them as tools, we start to co-construct this world together, right? And poetry is something that is not only something that is existing, but something that is created through the words and the emotions and the feelings from this universe of words that come from our students' minds, hearts, and hands as well. I want to go on to the next question, which is the question for reflection. What does this picture mean to me? So taking a more personal turn on, like, why is this picture meaningful for myself? Go ahead and populate your answers in the YouTube chats. I also want to mention that perhaps this picture that I showed you, you were probably not able to notice the words that are embedded in each picture. And so in these birds, you have the word flew and flee. In the clouds, you have the words soft, softly. In the sun, you have the words honey, shimmer, stay. In the water, you have the words plummet, flicker, once, million, echo, and in the boat it says the pencil, and so there's all these little words embedded into this picture, and so I just wanted to make sure that people notice that because their meanings might be a little bit
beautiful.
But go ahead and sort of do a quick reflection. What does this picture mean to me? And go ahead and populate that into the chat box as well and share that.
Oh, the comments are flowing. You wanna hear, Nico?
I would love to. Go right ahead.
Okay, and Ariana Marques says that for her, it means that our thoughts could take us to different places, different meanings, and to different senses. Rodrigo says that for him, this is a trip in his thoughts and in his creativity. Larissa says that it means a possibility to reach of the reach of our words and how this can be beautiful.
Those are lovely, lovely comments about what this picture means to our different selection of audience members. Thank you so much for sharing that with me, Daniela. That was heartwarming. Thank you.
Nico here from Marta Franco, Marta Diniz. She's here with us on Zoom. A pencil allows you to use words to take you anywhere. Yasmin, back to YouTube, she's saying that we always you're gonna always leave a little bit of us behind wherever we go.
Yeah.
That we imprint our personalities through our words in the world. I love that.
Yes, I love that too.
Flying, okay, so many beautiful comments. Flavia is saying like it means beauty, that the image reminded her of Brazil and
right now
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that we can almost capture the beauty of our surroundings in the power of our words. I'm going to go on to the last part of this routine. And so we're going to go on to the we of this part of the thinking routine. And what we're going to do as we is we're going to be looking at a short poem. I will be reading this short poem to the upper right-hand side aloud. Rowing in a paper boat, I use my pencil as oar. My words begin to flow. And so for this little making activity, what I would like for you to do is to take a look at the instructions to your left, take a piece of paper that you have prepared, and I want you to follow the instructions to fold a sailboat. After you finish folding the sailboat, what I want you to do is to copy the short poem on one side of your sailboat. On the other side, I want you to translate the poem into your home language. And so when you finish, you should be able to have a sailboat with a poem in English on one side and a poem in your home language on the other side.
Okay.
We'll give you a few minutes just to do that, and then we will read it aloud very soon. And make sure to try to make your poem flow, okay? So go ahead and start this making activity. If you're like me, I also know that for some of us, these visual directions might be quite challenging. So
yes.
sometimes I tell my students, remember, you have another tool in your pockets. It could be your phone, right? And so go ahead and go to Google, the best tool of all to find anything, and go ahead and just find sailboats origami. And what you can do is you can find under videos, you know, these really easy to follow.
Today we will be folding a traditional origami sailboat in World
So I'll go
Origami
ahead and let the video play.
World Origami Days is a 2.5-week-long celebration about
I have
spreading
sent
the joy
them
of
the link
origami.
on the YouTube chat.
Okay.
And also on Zoom so that they can follow on their rhythm as well.
Great.
Perfect, Todd.
So we'll go ahead and put the slide back on so that you can follow the regular instructions if you choose to, or you can do the video instructions if you are having trouble with the visual instructions.
This is hard. I've never been good with origami.
It's not easy. You know, this is my second try. Actually, the first one did not
Go so
go
well.
all that well. You know, I folded it before, but after not folding the same thing for a long time, you also tend to forget. So allow yourself that room for mistake. You know, once again, we have
Yeah, it's
15
okay
minutes.
to fail then.
Yeah. So once again, if you are having trouble with the visual instructions on the slide, go ahead and go to the link, and the link should be able to help you with
Yay,
more.
I made it.
Yay. So once you finish your syllable, remember to copy the poem on one side in English, and try your best at a translated version in your home language on the other side, okay?
Okay. Cheiroso.
I did it.
Yay. I'm going to begin and write the poem on my on the sailboats, but take your time. We'll give you guys 1.5 more minutes.
As John Spencer says in his videos, I'm making tons of glorious mistakes. I might take a little longer.
Something around step 4 and 5 are a little difficult to understand, but when you get to 6, it's easier from that part.
And as we're waiting, if you are already finished, if you are way ahead and you have a translation that you want to share, with the rest of our online audience, please add your translation of this poem into the chat box in YouTube, and we will read them aloud. Or if you are one of the members of our Zoom team and you want to share your translation aloud, also prepare to share that. So let's give ourselves 30 more seconds to do that. Usually in a classroom, you know, we have as much time as we want to, you know, give kids the time to finish their projects. You know, usually when we are on site, we have the kids helping each other with finishing up their sailboats, and there's a lot of supports. But sadly, our webinar only has 20 minutes left, so we do have to continue. Daniela, can you please share with us perhaps some of the translations that have popped up in the chat box?
Nico, I'm busy finishing my boat.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm gonna do my best. Oh, sorry, I even left the page. Okay.
Nope.
Okay, we have some people who have finished.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we are looking for the poetry, right? Okay, right.
The translation of the poetry, sister. You can finish your boat. I can help with the comments.
All right. Thanks.
Rodrigo translated his remando em barco de papel, uso meu lápis como remo. Minhas palavras começam a fluir.
I think you have to translate to English, no?
Well, I know the English,
Okay.
but that sounded so beautiful. You know, I understand a little bit of Spanish, and I'm always surprised at how many words Spanish and Portuguese have in common, and that just sounded so beautiful.
Yes.
Sora, were there any other translations that were
Yes.
a bit different?
Larissa is a little bit different. She chose some different words. Remando em meu barco de papel. She took. Eu uso meu lápis como remo. Minhas palavras começam então a fluir. Larissa made some connection. She said that the rowing boat is hers. So I'm rowing my paper boat in Portuguese. And she also connected that rowing the boat with the pencil is the trigger for the flowing with the words, you know?
I love that Larissa used some creative liberties. You know, sometimes when it comes to translations,
she did.
Some of us translate it completely literally, but some of us decide to put our own little personal take on the translation as well.
It's my engineer head.
This is so beautiful. I'm back.
Have you finished yours, sister?
I did. Mission accomplished.
Me too. I'm so proud of myself.
I have to work on the poems too.
My boat even stands, you know?
Late finisher, but I'm gonna do my best.
Yeah, me too.
Since we don't have much time left, I'm going to go on. So quickly, Daniela, I'm going to have a little chat with you about, you know, how do we share these beautiful products? You know, we put them up to the camera, but perhaps we can use a social media tool to communicate our finished products with a wider audience. And so, Daniela, how do you use social media with your students? Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
it's oh Nico, it's like after we make something together like this, right? It doesn't matter if we are doing remote learning, we are together, right? That is like this energy of making things together. So we want to share. We want others to see it, to comment on it, to help us improve, right? To keep the conversation going. So picture and a shared space, a shared digital space, right? Like a tinkering table to keep the conversation alive and build community.
Of course. And so, you know, when we think about, I remember you telling me before that you use Seesaw so that students can post pictures of their, of what they have made, and they can comment on each other's pictures of what they have made. Let's go ahead and use Instagram as a platform to do that sharing. And so, you know, we also can, how do we find each other? We find each other on social media using these hashtags. So what are some possible hashtags we can use to find each other through Instagram when we are sharing our finished sailboats with our translations? Any ideas from the team? Oops.
Origami with Nico Chen.
Oh, okay. That's a lovely one. I'll add that one here. Origami with Nico Chen. Any other suggestions from the team about what possible hashtags? If you're in the audience as well, you can also put possible hashtags to use.
Oh my gosh, like building community.
Mm-hmm. Love it.
My first origami.
I love that one. I love that
I
one.
love that one.
Yeah, it's not my first origami, but it's my first sailboat with poetry.
Hooray.
Oh my gosh, and then MCL poetry boat. Maybe we have some suggestions from the audience too, from hashtags that we could use. And I have a personal request.
Okay.
Oh.
Nico, hashtag loving Nico Chen.
Oh, that is so sweet.
Please add this one. It's a personal request.
So those are all lovely possible hashtags as they are coming through. We can go on to we can add that to our list as well. You know, another suggestion that I want to bring in is, you know, we did our first FuturED boat poem. So that is a possible little hashtag that you could use. So you can hashtag it that plus any of the possible hashtags that we have come up with. You can also at people in your making community. So if you want to add maybe a former English teacher that taught you beautiful poetry in the past, you can actually find them on social media and sort of add them into your posts. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, for myself, take out my phone, take a picture of my boat.
Me too.
And I'm going to just sort of make a little post of a picture of my boats. And you know what's kind of surprising about this is I live in California. I actually live on a boat. So let me just quickly show you what's outside of my.
Oh, that's awesome!
Unbelievable!
This is unbelievable.
So I'm
This
living
is
on
a surprise.
It's a good place to hide.
Oh my gosh!
And
This
so
is
it is
unbelievable.
lovely blue weather outside today. The skies are
magical
blue. There are some fires,
teaching.
but there's boats everywhere. There's boats everywhere. So I am going to, you know, think about
I'm dumbstruck.
I want to think about, like, how do I make a creative post about my experience and learning and reflect about my learning in the subtitle as well. And so I might write about, it's magical to be able to create a boat with my hand to match my environs and to also be able to kind of learn new words from a new language that I have had very little access to until recently with this wonderful FuturED team. And I'm gonna add all the people who are on this team. I'm gonna hashtag it FuturED Boat Poem, and I'm also gonna add the hashtag building community. And so let's go ahead and do that little post right now. I'll give you guys just 30, let's say 1 minute to add our posts onto our Instagrams and see if we can find each other on social media.
Nico, while we're at it, we have a question from the audience, which is from Flavia. She asked a little earlier, but now I think it's time for some questions, right? Too. She was curious about your opinion about the future of education, and if you have noticed a bigger movement of engaged educators on MCL outside America and Europe.
Sadly, I do not have much access to educators outside of the United States and Europe until recently, which is with the FuturED team in Brasilia, Brazil. And I'm hoping that this continues to expand because, you know, a lot of educational theory and educational ideas that come out of this research does not make it that far. But because Project Zero does have such an international presence, I will not be surprised if MCL makes an international splash.
Thank you very much.
We surely hope for, right? And this is a great opportunity. It's like a call for arms, Nico, because we have here in Brazil the maker movement became so popular in Brazil, right? And many schools built maker spaces, and so it's very important that people who love maker-centered learning and teaching in different ways together and having these conversations really get together to research, to study, to share best practices, to strengthen, right, this resurgence of maker-centered learning and creative learning, inquiry-based learning, so that after this great challenge that the world is facing, we do have a stronger communities of educators, right? Working together to improve education, right, everywhere. And I'd like, as we finish and people are posting, I'm posting, I'd like to thank you so much. It's just amazing and to have you talking about thinking routines, something that we believe in, and you're talking about equity, about community making, right? It's beautiful. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. And I just wanted to share a few more slides about, so surprisingly, the connection to Brazil is not a weird thing because, you know, in the United States, critical pedagogy is actually very, very inspiring for a lot of American educators. And so Paulo Freire, who is a Brazilian educator, talks about how when we are reading, we are not only looking at words, we are actually reading the world. And so MCL, actually part of the inspiration comes from Paulo Freire's work. And so, you know, when I teach about poetry, you know, the poems get harder and harder. And so when I teach origami as a making process, it allows for students to have this tactile experience while learning poetry as well, and seeing how words, as you write words, you are creating more meaning and more shapes in the world and shaping the world. And so this is a lovely poem that was actually translated from Chinese to English by one of my students. So the sailboat activity that you just did today, that was the introductory lesson for every student, but all of my students were asked to choose a poem in their home languages and to actually translate it into English for my class. After that, we were able to share the poem, and we also learn the origami style that the student has made, and we come together to make a beautiful little shared meaning space. So this is our maker table with the word love and hope when we think about what these butterflies symbolize for us. I want to just quickly talk about teacher transformation. And so a lot of the time we think about teaching language as, you know, we need to teach students how to pass the, I think it's the TESOL test, that's the college entrance examination, or we need to teach students how to write an essay. And we don't really think about the making processes, the tools that we can actually use to make the language learning process a bit more engaging and a lot more meaningful. And so for myself, back in 2016, you know, I came to this community of learning at Oakland International High School thinking to myself, you know, how the hell do I engage and support my newcomer students, most of whom have been in the US for less than 2 years, in writing a 5-paragraph argumentative essay in English? And we focus on the form of the language. However, my instructional coach, who was Brooke, she is now the executive director of Agency by Design Oakland, asked me to join her as a part of the teacher community in Oakland. And through this maker-centered learning, I realized, you know, my question has totally shifted to how do I facilitate both content and English language learning through our newcomer students' home language, visual language, gestural language, and agency in language. And so looking at language not only as a theoretical idea, but language as an actual tool that our students can use to imprint their own meaning upon the world. And so I want to talk about Paulo Freire once again, because, you know, he says, education is the practice of freedom, the means by which men and women deal critically and creatively with reality and discover how to participate in the transformation of their world. And so, you know, for me, my guiding question as a language teacher who finds himself at the intersection of language and maker-centered learning is that, you know, we can use language, you know, textual, visual, and gestural as a tool to remake the world. And so I'd like to end my little spiel on that.
This is amazing. I personally love Paulo Freire. I am an engineer by formation, but I am also an educator in formation right now. And I'm beginning to read Paulo Freire and know his work because education school in Brazil are mostly focusing on him. And I can see why right now, and it's really inspiring.
Thank you so much, Rodrigo. That's a lovely comment. I want to just quickly also talk about, so I skipped one thing, and I just want to talk about this really quickly, which is we talk about the essay. You know, the essay is sort of the gatekeeper for a lot of students to go into university. And sometimes students are just so disengaged from having to force themselves to write in this form. And so when I use this question to guide my designing processes, using this limited toolkit, I think about what they can make. What can they make beyond the essay? And so the students I was teaching were writing essays about this question: when is it right to break the law? And I used these thinking routines once again to think about my community of learning. You know, like, who are the parts and people who are in this learning community? What do they think, feel, and care about? And so I was able to create these making activities using very basic materials. So once again, it is just the pen, the pencil, the markers, the paper, the language. And so using these very rudimentary tools and using the thinking routine, think, feel, care, and hacking my own thinking routine, should, could, and would, students were able to create protest signs. So we sort of, we did not do a protest, but we were able to share these signs with each other and, you know, post these signs on our own social media accounts about our viewpoints and opinions. We were able to think about different situations where the law was being broken and talk about what people should, could, and would do. And we also used paper to write these beautiful letters to our civic leaders. So some people wrote to the Oakland mayor, Libby Schaaf. Some people wrote to the California governor at the time, Jerry Brown. Some people wrote to President Donald Trump about their opinions about these laws that oppress them as immigrant students who obviously are not welcomed by our presidential powers. And so the fact that our students were able to make these beautiful artifacts, the essays that turned out that year were just so much better. Like my first year without the making activities, I had 72% of my students complete their essays. After integrating these making activities, the students were much more engaged, and 92% of my students were able to produce full, beautiful English argumentative essays, even though they come from countries outside of the United States that don't speak English, and they only have been in the United States for less than 2 years. I'm gonna just sort of open it up to, I know that it is time for most of our audience to go. I wanna respect your time, but if you have any other questions, go ahead and send those over to me, and I am willing to stay behind a little bit longer to answer any of your questions.
Se alguém tiver alguma pergunta para o Nico, pode colocar aqui nos comentários. A Flávia fez uma pergunta, o Rodrigo passou para o Nico. E se você tiver alguma pergunta e estiver assistindo com o som original aqui dentro do Zoom, pode também colocar sua pergunta ou no Q&A ou no bate-papo.
Guys, are the hashtags here in the comments?
We have a question from Flavia again. She asked, did you feel the students more engaged after these thinking routines?
So not only, so I would say that the thinking routines, the engagement was that because they were routine, students knew and expected for us to go through discussions in a certain model. Sometimes I think students feel frustrated that they don't know what to say during a discussion, but the thinking routine actually gives them a beautiful structure to know what to expect. And because it is consistent, it seems like their thoughts started to flow out much faster once the thinking routine has gone over its first and second attempt. By the third attempt, all the students were like, oh, we know exactly what to talk about once we read an article or once we watch a video. You know, we know that the teacher is gonna ask us, you know, what do you think this person thinks, feels, and cares? Or what do you think this law's like parts, purposes, and complexities are?
It's amazing, right, Nico, when they can structure their thoughts in a certain way and they begin to use this in their everyday lives, you know?
Of course, like I think that sometimes we as teachers think that we need to, you know, give all the information to the students, but the students are very, they can see these things for themselves. They can actually co-construct this knowledge for themselves. And so oftentimes after these thinking routines, I don't have to be in front of the classroom to deliver the information like a lecture, but I can actually just allow for them to sort of co-construct and to be able to pull together this information as a learning community.
Ariana wants to thank you for this experience. He says that you're very careful, very delicate, and that the communication process and with care, it's very inspiring. She loves it.
Thank you so much. I also want to just quickly say that I really appreciate this opportunity to talk to this digital audience and for all of your beautiful comments. I actually have not been teaching for a while now. I'm now a PhD student, so this is actually one of my first digital teaching experiences. I'm still a little bit nervous. As you can see, I'm still practicing, but you know, during this time of COVID, all of us teachers are struggling and learning, and we just have to struggle through it together and, you know, build each other up. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Nico. It was a great pleasure. You brought lots of insights and like the making and thinking and words connecting our minds and hearts and hands. It was an amazing experience. Thank you so very much.
Yeah, it gave us a lot to think about and to reflect and to try to keep applying this on our online sessions and start to inspire other teachers as well.
Thank you so much. And I mean, I want to just talk about just like, once again, this very simple toolbox has a lot of possibility. And so thank you so much for sharing this journey with me.
Thank you for joining us, Nico, today. Thank you for bringing so much inspiration for us educators right now that sometimes we don't know how to make our online classes or virtual programs a little more engaging, and you were so inspiring today. You gave so much inspiration to us all. I'd like to thank to the U.S. Embassy as well for supporting us with those sessions and programs. I'd like to thank Casa Thomas Jefferson for helping us and putting this together with all this amazing team. Thank you, guys. Thank you. And thank you, everyone that is watching us. Vou mudar, I'm going to switch to Portuguese. Muito obrigada a todo mundo que veio participar, que veio se juntar a nós aqui e ajudar a refletir um pouco mais sobre uma educação mais ativa junto com o Nico hoje.